So we've got a bunch of graphs here that I just love. I think I got this from Berlin Energy from Twitter. And so these are great graphs. What you're seeing here is the blue is battery. This is the electric vehicles, and the light blue is hybrids. And this is from 2020, October. This is by month. And you can see this is right now in China from 2020 to 2023 by month. And you can see the growth of what's happening each month of how it's, this is new car, electric car registrations. And then you'll see percentages at the top of each of the columns, and they are the 1 year growth or reduction compared to the year before. So this is January 2023. It's negative 8% compared to January of 2022. And then, but you can see the growth. That's 59% growth in February, 22% growth in March compared to the year prior. So this is just a nice kind of state of the union, but you can see that it's growing. And of course, it's cyclical depending on the month, but it's moving quick. This is the trend where we're headed here. Then this chart here, I know it's hard for people to see, but it's nice, but it's basically the world here. Then you got China, Europe, United States, then you got Norway, Sweden, Netherlands, Germany, and all the other countries here. And so it's nice to see them side by side because you can see how the United States is actually like, small compared to what China's been able to do because of the incentives and the push that they have in selling both hybrids and electric vehicles. You can see that just nice to see how it's all kind of adds up together to the world, which is the first left here. Germany is a lot. It's huge here. I mean, why is this? That's weird. I don't understand why they look like that they're much further ahead. Oh, it's a totally different. This is in thousands. Yeah, these ones are in thousands, and these ones are in millions. Okay, there you go. That makes sense. Yeah, so I made a mistake. Yeah, made a mistake there. And then this is the United States. So you can see the same kind of chart as the one in China by month from 2020 to 23. And you can see in the United States, it's continued to grow because they're still at the early stages. So, January compared to last January, it's 112% growth and so forth. So it's a hockey stick up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you see these graphs, even with the China one and this one, you see that it's still a wave going up and down. And China's growing really fast, and they're a force to be reckoned with. So you can't underestimate them. But even them, they have waves that go up and down. And yeah, the economy, and I taught someone who just came back from China, and I thought the economy is like okay over there, and it's apparently not that good over there either. So, and they have better offerings in terms of like they have cheaper cars. Obviously, they don't need as much distance because the city structure is different, but they have more offerings, and yet, yeah, the economy is not that good over there apparently as well. So, but that's why they have the waves going on in terms of the sales as well for the cars.
Okay, so that's a good point. So number one, what you said there was China has they do have offerings for this lower segment. They have micro cars, electric vehicles. They have the sub-segment, subcompact cars, but which we don't have in the U.S. at this point. But they had significant incentives, and so I guess when I look at this chart, what I'm seeing here is that this is the United States in the far right. This is China in the left here. And so, hey, we're just at the beginning. People are concerned that, the growth is going to slow down. If you look at what's happening in other countries, and you can see the percentage of growth. So even if you look at the Norway, if you look here on the right, that those dots, that's the percentage of the EV compared to all cars, global cars. And so in Norway, they're already at 80% of all new cars sold is hybrid or EVs. So if you think somehow maybe they're different, sure, but they're leading the way. China's already 30%. So yeah, it's going to happen.
Well, Norway is very much forward thinking because they've started putting taxes on imports for ICE cars. So it incentivizes people to get a green car, and they're way ahead. And that's where I think most countries are going to be headed towards, and they're already there. So you already see certain countries already have done it. So, and we see the future in those countries and where we're going to be at.
Yeah. Okay. I do like those charts. I do like to present kind of like where we're at, and every time I can get my hands on one of them, I'll keep collecting them. Okay, so another great important tweet came from our friend Alexandra Mertz, Tesla Boomer Mama, this morning. And she's been saying this for many months now, but she's been recommending that Tesla starts to offer financing by Tesla instead of the banks. And she has a couple interesting comments here. Number one is that if the chart in the bottom here is the U.S. Treasury's yield curve, and you can see that in the 10-year mark, it's much lower than in the shorter years, and that's where it currently is. And so she's saying that by moving, if you offer financing from Tesla instead of the banks, and you move it from a 6-year to a 10-year, you can lower the monthly payment by 33%. And she said it should be fair for Tesla because these cars last longer. And if somebody stops payment, you can just summon it back in case of repo. You know where exactly where the cars are. You can shut it down. But she pointed out that a $50,000 car, if you do this and you offer it to Tesla owners, you can change the monthly from 750 to 500. That is a significant reduction. And she says it means that the client who wants to take out a loan for the car goes through Tesla instead of the bank. Somebody asked, hey, I'm currently being financed through Tesla. At first, it was supposed to be financed through TD Bank, but then ended up being financed by Tesla. And she said, good to know. Yes, they do some. So Tesla is already doing some financing, but they're very little financing in the US, most of it in China and Europe. What's your opinion about this? She's been pushing about this. She's been suggesting this for a while. I kind of feel like it's about right timing for them to do this. And especially if Tesla's going to go to a subscription model, what a perfect way to do this.
Yeah, I think it's a good another extension of the business. All other automotive companies have their financing arms, or they had modifiers since 2008. But uh, Tesla has the money. They don't have debt, more or less, and so they have the cash for it. So it would make sense to be able to do that to enable people to have it. And what Alexandra said, if you could go from 750 to 500, that is significant for the average person purchasing a vehicle, because the cost of gasoline is definitely going to be over 500 for people who have like the regular commute. They may
Yeah,
not go over
exactly.
750, right? But 500 for
Yeah.
sure you are. You're going to hit 500 for sure. So then having a gas car is the same as having that electric car. So it makes sense that if you change it by 33%, that would be a big incentive, because most people look at what their monthly payment is. They're not looking at the entire price of the vehicle more so than the monthly payment. So if the monthly payment, even if the car is cheap, is if it's $1,000, you're not going to be able to afford it no matter what, because it's about cash flow. So I think she has a really good point in that, and I'm glad she posted it, because I wasn't thinking of it as a financing part of it, but that would make sense. Also, another extension that Tesla could get into, not because they want to make a profit, but because it makes it easier for people to get their vehicles.
Yeah. I think we're really, really, really close. I think we're almost there for Tesla to just make it like a complete no brainer, right? Because we're hearing today that Uber drivers and Lyft drivers, because they drive the car so much, they're discovering that if I go ahead and buy a Tesla today, they now, and do a loan for it, and then my normal gas cost would be around 700, 750. It kind of like, instead of paying the gas, I don't need to do that. I pay a lower amount, and then I'm putting money into buying a car. It just makes more sense for them, especially since they can charge for that. So they're almost all doing this. Now, if they can do the financing, like at what point do you think that Tesla will eventually just switch 100% to subscription model that includes the financing to buy the car, the insurance, the subscription to the entertainment, maybe the FSD robotaxi, maybe the supercharging, just like one monthly fee that you would pay instead of paying an outright, purchase the car. And then just so if they do the financing, it allows them to do this, I think, to bundle everything together. And we're almost getting there with a monthly should be like so compelling that you would just not go anywhere else. Because if you don't have to pay the insurance, like separately, and it's cheaper because the whole reason why Tesla insurance could be cheaper, right? So do you think we're going to
Yeah, it
get there
makes
sooner than
sense.
later? Yeah.
If they could eventually bundle that together and make a seamless system, which they're pretty good at doing, that would make a lot of sense. And I didn't think of it in terms of a bundle, but I thought of it each individually. The subscription for the or app store for the games, and then the subscription for FSD. It makes a lot of sense if they would be able to bundle that, and that would also innovate the very business model they've already been working on making a car as a SaaS model. So they definitely could work on that too when the time comes. I think when the pieces and the systems come together, I think it's possible to do it, and it'll be a lot one stop shop basically.
Yeah. I think the we need to do some calculations, but you know how the big issue was the volume versus margin strategy that Tesla had, and then people don't like the fact that he said Elon and others said that they're going to push the margin, but you can make it up. But the problem with that is the vast majority of the margin can only be done typically from a FSD purchase. $200 a month or the $15,000 purchase to make up for the lost margin. But what do you think? I mean, is there enough if you do financing, if you do insurance? Is there enough others, or are they just going to be tiddly squat compared to it really is? You got to wait till robotaxi before you can make significant margins.
Well,
I think, yeah, yeah,
I think so. I think it's really easy to look at the FSD because that has the biggest gross margin that's going to add or subtract depending on that, and it's the most costly thing if you buy outright right now, right? 15,000 or 200 per month, and that's where everyone's eyes goes because it's the easiest place to calculate. But I think what's missed is also like it's not like they're stopping innovation and making
yeah,
their production cheaper. Like they're making a few years back, quite a bit. I think 4 or 5 years back, Elon had been asked about it, and they're making an average of 12 minor or major changes every week to the production.
right,
So it's not like they're
yeah,
going to do nothing, right? So they're going to make improvements on gross margin even on small percentages. Uh, just with the manufacturing going forward, even if they, this whole volume thing and gross margin thing wasn't there, they're still going to improve on the gross margin with the manufacturing. So if you had, financing, if someone did do the FSD, or if there's the app for games or whatnot, that would help with the gross margin little by little. And that's the whole point of the unboxing thing and the new Gig of Mexico one, is that you're taking every little process and making improvements on every segment. So when you accumulate it together, then you can see the bigger part of the change. You're not looking at the low hanging fruit, that one thing or the FSD, and that's it. Imagine if you had to explain this whole process in an earnings call. Like the earnings call would be a couple of hours because you're
yeah,
talking the entire process. You're saying a percent there, a percent there, a percent there, a percent there, right? Well, if you improve the gross margin by 5 or 6% by improving the entire process, then that's also a significant part. But you can't see it that way because it's like, oh, 1% there or maybe 0.5% there. People aren't going to see it as like, oh, it's enough for the makeup for its time being, because they're still looking at 3 months out and not 3 years out, 5 years out. And that's where the conversation starts getting steered towards this like volume versus gross margin, the GM, and the conversation becomes more short term. It sounds to me more like a short term situation. The more that you talk about it in these like very dichotomous ways, as opposed to looking at the entire process.